My name is Yosuke Tarakawa. I'm 28 years old and I work as a freelancer. Today, I'd like to tell you about an incident that happened between me and my ex-fiancée's father that resulted in me putting them in their rightful place. First, a little bit about myself. As I mentioned, I'm a freelancer and my work involves software engineering and video editing, which are a strange combo, I admit. But recently, things are finally starting to pick up. And also, I'm in a committed relationship. Her name is Meiko Tanaka, and she's my age. We were introduced to each other via a mutual friend and we hit it off pretty well, I must say. The moment I saw her, I said to myself, "Make her your girlfriend, you bastard, or you'll regret it for the rest of your pathetic life." I was extremely persistent, and even after I confessed my feelings to her, she replied,
"You're the first one to say you love me this much, I'll be honest."
She pretty much accepted me enthusiastically. The relationship went smoothly, and it was perhaps 18 months after we started out as a couple. "Will you please marry me? I promise I'll make you happy."
"Yes, I gladly will, darling."
She graciously accepted my proposal to marry her, and I was over the moon for the rest of the month. In this manner, we got to the stage where we'd become engaged. But unfortunately, this is when my time in literal hell would begin. Hey, do I really need to buy it? It's gonna make my budget pretty tight for a while, you know.
Yes, without question. We have been talking about it from when we first got together, didn't we? Too late to turn back even if you start worrying now.
I mean, sure, I guess, but I do have a suit of my own, you know.
A cheap one you use for work just won't do, darling. You have to look the picture of a gentleman.
I think it'll be too much. It's just a visit to meet your parents and get their blessing to get married.
I wouldn't be so sure of that. Dad's a pretty strict person, enough to turn someone away who shows up without dressing decently well.
Alright, you win. If you really insist I have to buy another one, I will.
Make sure that the jacket and pants combined are at least $100,000, alright? Be sure to switch out your neckties and your shoes too.
Oh geez, this'll really dig deep into my savings.
And also, what do you propose you'll do for a gift?
I'm thinking of getting something simple at the department store downtown. A box of sweet snacks like cake, for instance. Would be nice, I thought.
That won't do either.
Oh, do your parents not like sweets?
It's not that, but something measly like a box of sweets isn't of any importance.
Then what do you suggest?
Alcohol, maybe, especially Japanese sake, and a famous one that also sits around $10,000 ranks.
Does Mr. Tanaka drink such good alcohol on a daily basis, or?
Yep, be sure to study a little bit about the sake you brought for him. He might ask you some detailed questions.
Got it. This is gonna take a toll on me, both financially and mentally. The preparations are more significant than I thought.
Can't be helped, darling. There's no conceivable way it's gonna end well for us if Dad doesn't end up approving of you. So you have to make an effort here.
But the fact that I have to do all this, I'm not welcome in your family, aren't I?
Well, he is a very old school kind of person. He might not understand what a freelance engineer even is at all.
At this point, I should even prepare myself physically for a potential punch in the gut.
You should. That would be best for you, honestly.
Oh shit, I meant that as a joke! To think that I really could be punched.
He also has a short temper. In a nutshell, spend as much money as you can in the things that require it. Okay, darling?
Alright, I'll make some efforts.
Thank you. I'll talk to you later.
After the once-in-a-lifetime moment of glorification that is proposing marriage to someone, then comes another dangerously serious hardship. We decided to pay her family a visit with the news of our engagement. But as you could probably imagine from my line conversation with Meiko, her father is quite a formidable creature to persuade to accept one's asking for his daughter's hand in marriage. According to Meiko, her father, Mr. Hidehiko, is quite an infamous character in her hometown. He's been running a long-established construction company for 40 years, and he's even had experience working as a member of the city council for a brief period. Additionally, he owns multiple portions of land across the region of Meiko's hometown, and his fortune is quite something indeed. Needless to say, this gentleman was beyond successful. He was downright victorious in life. But I'd known all that long before I got engaged to Meiko. And since we decided to marry, I've come to realize just how much of an endeavor this was going to be. Even her suggestions were leaps and bounds beyond anything I thought I was acceptable for him. In any case, I decided to follow her advice, and I did well to prepare for the encounter. And then the big day was finally upon us, and as I passed through the door into Meiko's home, So, you're Mr. Yusuke. I've heard things about you. Yes, sir. My name is Yusuke Terakawa. Thank you so much for taking some time. You need not use your formalities, young man. Just come in. We mustn't let you stay out here for much longer. I winced at how cold and unwelcoming his attitude seemed to be. By the way, his wife, Maiko's mother, had passed on a couple years back, and he'd been living in this house alone for some time. There wasn't anyone who could justify my actions, so I thought that this would be even more difficult. I brushed the fear and intimidation I had and brought back my motivation to do what needed to be done. Miss Maiko tells me you enjoy alcohol, so I hope you enjoy this gift, sir. This one is a quite exquisite drink, I have found. Indeed, this is a very exquisite sake. However, I have my doubts about you bribing me with formal language and expensive alcohol in the hope of changing something. Oh no, sir, I have no intention of such notions, I assure you. That aside, hurry along and tell me what exactly is your business here. Remember, Yusuke, you already knew you weren't really welcome long before you even met this guy. I swallowed my fear once again, bowed down to him and declared, I would like to ask your blessing to marry your daughter, Maiko. I kept a cordial, sincere composure to truly make him see I was adamant on this decision. But then Mr. Heidi Hiko snorted. I may have been mistaken, but I'm pretty sure I detected a hint of amusement in that snort. Marriage, I see. I've been told you're currently in debt and that you work part-time as a janitor. It really seemed like Maiko had told him a bit about me. And indeed, nothing he said was untrue, but it wasn't exactly completely true either. I beg your pardon, sir. The debt is for a scholarship from college, and repaying it in full is nigh, I assure you. As for the part-time work as a janitor, I left that job 6 months ago. As of now, I'm making a nice living through freelance engineering. But it seemed like Mr. Heidi Hiko wasn't satisfied with that response, because what he said next took things to another level of hopelessness. Even for a brief instant, working part-time means the services you're offering is not enough to pay off everything you have, it seems. You'll forgive me, but I cannot give my daughter to someone miserable like you. Now leave. He saw absolutely no sign of potential in me to make his daughter happy, and he was set on throwing me out of the house. I frantically tried to persuade him to reconsider, but his calm, deep voice picked up a notch. I swear, even a silverback gorilla would have shit his pants if he went up against this man. Enough! My decision is final! Don't make me regret you ever came here! I felt like I'd been struck by lightning, and I just was left with no choice but to abandon hope and leave. Maiko stayed behind and did what she could to console the agitated Mr. Heidi Hiko. How's it going? Is he back to normal yet?
Honestly, it's hard to tell, but I will say that I got him to calm down much more than he was when he left. That's for sure.
And has his opinion on me changed at all?
Nope. Looks like he simply cannot accept you as his future son-in-law, but he did suggest something that might make him reconsider.
No way! What do I have to do?
Basically, if you gave up your unstable freelance job and came to work for his company, then he might change his mind.
So, in other words, I have to become an employee of a construction company?
Pretty much. There, he can keep an eye on you, and if you do well enough, then he says he'll have another think about it.
Which means I would have to completely abandon my current job, right?
Yeah, and honestly, I agree with him.
Do you really?
Freelancing isn't exactly a stable job, because you depend on the generosity of people willing to hire you for some work they have. For the sake of our life together, a full-time job with a stable salary would make things better, I think.
I see. You've been thinking this way this whole time, huh?
I'm sorry, I was going to tell you after we were done with the visit, but all things considered, if you are going to marry me, you're eventually going to inherit his company. So I thought his idea is a good one.
But still.
Think about it, honey. You're not just switching jobs, you're becoming an employee of a pioneering company in one fell swoop. Plus, if he approves of you in the end, he'll give his blessing, and you can marry me, finally. This is such a wonderful deal.
Okay, I understand. If the woman I love so much tells me this is for the best, I will do it.
Thank you, darling. I love you. I'm gonna go tell Dad the good news.
Cool. I'll stop by again to greet him once more.
Oh yeah, he told me that if you do want to work for him, you should live in one of the accommodations owned by the company.
Eh? So not just a transfer in jobs, but also a transfer in living quarters? This will make me really busy for a while. And that's how I became the employee of the father of my fiancée. We postponed the family registrations and the receptions for the time being, and basically until Mr. Hidehiko gives me his full blessing to marry his daughter, we are acknowledged as an engaged couple, sort of, in brackets. Living together was also out of the question for now. So I had to move into one of the accommodations that the company manages. This is pretty much the equivalent of saying that he doesn't approve of us even being together, let alone engaged to be married. It's quite heartbreaking to have endured that, I'll tell you what. However, her own living quarters wouldn't be too far from mine after I settled in. So it wasn't going to be anything like a long-distance relationship. If that were the case, well then how cruel can a man be, truly? The true problems arose from the company in question. It was nice that I got a stable job in management, but frankly, the job was far worse than anything I'd imagine was even possible.
You freaking dimwit! Can't even do such a simple, measly little job like that without getting screwed up, can you? You're such an incompetent baboon!
I'm terribly sorry.
Write a letter of reflection today! And don't even think about leaving until you're finished!
I endured my boss's constant harassment and insulting 24/7, and I dare you to come up with an experience even remotely nightmarish than this particular job. The working environment was literally unbearable. I worked extra hours day after day after day, and it became less frequent to finally get home to do something other than sleep. I wasn't even getting paid for some of the overwork I had to do. I found out soon after I started working, but this company's officers were living a life in paradise, full of glory. Many of the department managers were close friends and family of Mr. Hidehiko, and that handful of chief officers monopolized most of the company's profits, which was in itself enormous. Meanwhile, the employees' salaries were ridiculously cheap. The rate of young employees quitting was also surprisingly high. In an effort to understand what exactly this company was like, I remembered reading one of their ads that said something like, "If you're promoted to a salary better than our minimum wage, you can make this much." But in order to get promoted, you literally had to become a chief officer. To make matters worse, every individual who held those positions were exclusive to close friends and relatives. No way someone else could get promoted in a system like that. Convinced the ad was a complete scam, all I could do was sigh in exasperation and power through the hellhole it really was. The reason why its reviews on social media were average was probably because I deleted every single negative comment ever posted and completely negated all that its employees had to say about its environment. A cornucopia of soul-wrenching harassment, unheard of in modern society, and an enterprise filled to the brim with black policies and regulations that were the very definition of inequality. It didn't take long before I started to regret the conditions that were bestowed upon me. Such a demanding working environment obviously made it impossible for me to reserve time to spend with my darling Maiko. Our communication had pretty much dwindled to the occasional text message and phone call. I was becoming increasingly worried that she'd grown distant from me, and that this whole thing was just a waste of time and effort. I was finally able to get a day off to meet with Maiko around 3 months after I started working for the company, but…
I'm so sorry, but I think we should call everything off. We never see each other anymore, and there isn't any reason to be together, given the circumstances.
My worst nightmare had come true. She broke up with me. The fact that we've been incommunicado for God knows how long is nothing but the cold, hard truth. No question about it. But in the beginning, I only agreed to do this because I'd swallowed the suggestions of her ridiculously strict father without question, and I was certain it would grant me the chance to marry her. You could even say it's downright unfair. I'd sacrificed my old life for her, and how am I repaid for that act of over-the-top generosity? By getting stabbed in the heart. I wanted to protest, but I knew it was futile, so I gave up on trying to get her to reconsider. I understand. Thank you so much for everything. We called everything off without me putting up much of a fight. Once that happened, I think you have an idea what followed. I hear you broke up with Michael. Then we have no use for you here. You'll be gone after the end of this month. And you're gonna quickly move out of that room of yours, am I clear? Without much of a solid reason, Mr. Hidehiko fired me. I was to leave the job after the month was over. I began to form a theory on what was actually his plan here. I now believe that he never really intended to change his mind about his daughter marrying me, and that he had set his terms convinced they would eventually drive Maiko to break up with me. In this manner, I had no choice but to leave the room I'd moved into not 6 months before, even after so much planning and toil. In the end, I said my goodbyes to my colleagues and to my bosses before leaving the company for good. After I left the premises, I was actually shaking. And it wasn't because I was angry, frustrated, or depressed about what happened over the last 6 months. To tell you the truth, my grand has worked! Finally! After all these years! Don't you worry, Dad. My revenge on that bastard for what he did to you will soon come full circle. Just please be a bit more patient. Please. I was shaking with joy because of a certain reason that originated many years ago. More on that later.
Hey, why won't you answer the phone? Can you explain to me what the heck is going on?
My! What's my ex-fiancée contacting me out of the blue for? Have I done something wrong? It's been 2 months, has it not? What can I do for you, m'lady?
Enough joking around and answer my question now.
I haven't the slightest idea what you're talking about. Oh yes, I hadn't apologized to you about ripping the strap on your purse perhaps 4 months after we started dating. It was an accident, honest.
Okay, now I'm even angrier. Do you know exactly what I'm talking about? Don't you feign ignorance about that article in the newspaper. At this rate, Dad's quickly on his way to get arrested.
That's too bad. My condolences.
You wrote this article, didn't you?
Wow, that's amazing. I didn't think you'd realize so quickly.
Dad tracked you down, you bastard. Don't you dare underestimate how much of an influence he is on our community, or how well he knows people.
Like I'm envious of how connected a CEO on the precipice of prison is with the community. In any case, I think my connections are helping the community a good deal more, I dare say.
You stupid slime-bag! I have so many questions! But how about we start with the why? Why on earth would you do something like this? Resentment from being dumped?
Wow, you're optimistic. I know you know me well enough to tell yourself that I'm not the kind of person who would create a scandal of these proportions over something so insignificant. In any case, there's no way such a detailed article could ever form from a mere few months of work.
Tell me more clearly.
How about you read more carefully, because that's literally it. I've been spending years of my time trying to get back at your father for what he's done, and this article is the culmination of all my efforts.
So then, you were just using me? That was your aim even before we met?
If you put it that way, yeah, I suppose I did. On the contrary, I wonder why you were never suspicious of me. Confessing my feelings after a few months, a proposal to marry you barely a year after we got together. I always thought you'd suspect something of ill intention, determined to become part of your family so quickly. But you never even had a fleeting flame of doubt, did you?
I can't believe this. You cruel, inhumane scumbag! You really think you can get away with this?
Looky who's talking. The woman who was together with not one, not two, but 3 different men, me included, at the beginning of our relationship. About the marriage of the 3 men you were with, I was the one who could get the most useful, wasn't I? Someone who could change his entire life and work for your father's company for the sake of marrying you. That's all I ever was to you, a bought and paid for sack of shit to bring to Daddy to use as his personal slave.
What are you talking about? I wasn't with 3 guys when I was with you. That's bullshit.
Oh, darling, please don't underestimate the researching powers of yours truly. A journalist by profession. Would you rather I publish an additional article about who exactly these gentlemen were?
No, don't do that. You're insane. You've gone absolutely crazy.
Yeah, you and me both, sister. Well then, please pay my respects to Master Heidi Heiko. Ciao!
Don't you walk away. You stay. I'll get you for this.
So what exactly just happened? Well, before I tell you that, yes, I lied to her about me being a freelance engineer. I'm instead a freelance journalist. Just the other day, I published an article that provided solid evidence against a scandal. Mr. Heidi Hiko and local politicians have been using financial means to corrupt the community. For years, I've been carefully monitoring Mr. Heidi Hiko and these politicians, trying to find tangible evidence to hold them rightfully accountable for their crimes. Additionally, I leaked first-hand information about how black the enterprise truly is, so I expect legal investigations will be conducted under the Label Standards Act. And then, after the texting you just saw between me and Maiko, the father and daughter knocked at my door.
You crackhead bird brain!
You've really done us down and dirty, haven't you? Prepare yourself for what's coming.
This is just too cruel.
You're the one with blood on his hands, Mr. Hidehiko, and there's no use denying that. And as for you, Missy, don't you dare play the victim card knowing you were cheating on me the whole time. Seems like they want to file a complaint against my article. Ha! So you really don't have the slightest clue. Looking at the face that's literally standing right in front of you, I suppose what they say is true. The only thing worse than being blind is having sight but no vision. Perhaps you've forgotten everything, but I remember it all. Perhaps the name Shigeru Terakawa may ring a bell. Right when I uttered that name, Mr. Hidehiko's face visibly became many shades paler. It can't be. You're his son? And now, the story you've all been waiting for. Rewind 5 years. This was before I became a freelancer and I was busy working hard at a publishing company as a full-time journalist. And one day during that period, my mother called me and... What? No way! Oh, Dad, please, no! I was informed that my father had had a myocardial infraction due to overworking. He was the manager of a small factory. It was notorious for its professionalism, both in its services and its business transactions. And things were going pretty well until an old friend of his conducted an investigation scam onto him, and the business turned completely on its side overnight. And that friend of his was none other than a certain Mr. Hidehiko Tanaka. In order to pay off the debt that his business started to accumulate, Dad sacrificed many hours of sleep. But eventually, his fragile body succumbed to the physical stress. In the end, Dad passed away because of this, and his company died with him. Mom was devastated, and the shock left her physically unable to care for herself, and now she's spending her days in an elder's home in the countryside. In order to avenge my father and to give my mother the happiness she needs to feel once again, I vowed to do what I could, and I voluntarily left my job and became a freelancer. This was because I'd become fully set on investigating Hidehiko Tanaka and muster enough evidence to publish an article that exposed his heinous crimes. And then I stumbled upon an interesting story about some allegations of collusion against him and a few local politicians. There was but one thing short of everything being arranged, but fate was smiling on me one day and allowed me the chance to meet none other than Hidehiko Tanaka's own daughter, Maiko. At first, my conscience told me it was cruel to simply use a woman as a tool to exact my revenge, but as I started to investigate her social life, I found that she was off gallivanting without a care in the world with two other guys. I tried confessing my feelings as a sort of test, and she quickly gave me the thumbs up. And so I decided it was worth the bigger cause. And so I later proposed to her and nearly went under his wing. Make no mistake, at this point I had zero intention of becoming related to him. My only purpose was to infiltrate his private life, see if I could come up with tangible evidence against him, and I was extremely fortunate to have been offered a job at his company. I was able to locate some account files from the realm of forgotten shadows and found unmistakable proof that he'd been bribing politicians without anyone knowing about it. So you were determined for revenge from the start?
Inhumane. All things considered, this is far more than what we deserve.
I've said it before and I'll say it again. Your father is completely to blame. And also cheating on multiple men like it's a walk in the park and choosing to marry me because I was the least cumbersome to induct into Daddy's company. We're a lot alike, you know. We tried using each other for our own benefit.
If people found out that Dad had been arrested, no guy will ever want to go out with me again. Are you really gonna let that happen to me?
In any case, even if I didn't expose everything, your father's company would eventually fall on its knees, in my arrogant opinion. My public research about his company revealed so much criticism on so many levels after all. No, please! Not only did you scam my own father, but apparently you also did the same heinous deeds unto other people and made a huge profit, it would seem. I wouldn't be surprised if people left. Right and center started suing you for what you did to them. And regarding that, I bid you good luck. And with that, both of them, father and daughter alike, fell to their knees. I warned them I would call the police if they didn't scram, and the two of them trudged away into the land of the forgotten. In this manner, Hidehiko was later arrested under alleged illegal bribery. and his company went bankrupt soon afterward. It turns out that Maiko had been at her father's company as a chief officer, but as the company went bankrupt, she lost her job. She'd never properly hunted for jobs before, and so, although she sought other jobs, no other companies would hire her. She was just too inexperienced as a whole. Furthermore, I found that she collaborated with Heidi Hiko to scam her past partners, and other such crimes would make her arrest inescapable as well, it would seem. By the way, I'd found out about her involvement in her father's crimes when I was investigating her relationship partners. After the article was published, I even managed to find the contact information of these individuals, reached out to them, met them in person, and listened to what they had to say. Heidi Hiko Tanaka was blackmailing me into investing in his company. Maiko was also his accomplice. I'm a victim of a massive scam. I decided to publish what they told me on the matter. I recorded the voice recordings myself, and every single letter of the article was written by yours truly. The whole thing was released during the public clamor that ensued Heidi Hiko's arrest. All this led to one conclusion. When she'd contacted me, Maiko herself plunged headfirst into this vortex of scandal and fraud. Hi, Dad. So I finally did it. I finally avenged you. Now you can truly rest in peace. I'm actually going to move to the country, near where Mom lives now. I'm done with working with gossip from now on. I'm gonna write articles that'll interest a good deal of people, Dad. And I'll make you proud of me. I love you. I miss you. I'll see you soon with Mom, if her health allows it. In the end, I left the field of controversial journalism, and I moved to the countryside, near Mom. Nowadays, I write articles based around the neighborhood, and although I must admit it is a bit lonely sometimes, I'm living a calm, pleasant life, doing what I love to do.